Okay, Jason Bateman taught me a secret, which is a little bit dark, but in order to not break during a scene, you have to stare at your co-star and think of a reason to resent them. Think of the thing you like about them least, and you have to focus on that, and it will stop you from laughing. Now, the hard thing about that is when you're working with people who you have no reason to resent and who you truly adore and look up to, you have to think of something. And it could be like, your parking spot is so much closer to set than mine. I have to walk in the heat so much further. I hate you. It doesn't really work. May work for Bateman, but I had a hard time in this movie keeping it together. That's the thing. I mean, I could watch these guys do anything, but to watch them play with each other was such a joy and a delight. I mean, I would spend a lot of time when I wasn't in the scene just standing at the monitor freaking out because you don't get the chance to see people with such different styles working together very often. So, you know, Carell, Buscemi, and Carrey are very different actors, and to see them together was kind of wild, and it was kind of like a mashup because they're very much on different rhythms, and yet they can jive together, and I loved it. And Steve Carell is also our producer on this film, and such a good one. And he really corralled everyone into this wonderful environment where everyone felt safe to come up with ideas. And our wonderful director, Don Scardino, is just so lovely. And I know I had the chance to improvise with some of the greatest people in the business, so I feel very, yeah. And they brought their A-plus game. I mean, so professional, tireless, and committing 100%. I remember watching Jim do a scene where he drills through his skull, and he did maybe 4 different versions of it, at least 10 takes, of an incredibly exhaustive, you know, physical bit. And it was like watching a modern dancer. That's how I describe watching Jim, because he's just like using every part of his body and his voice, and it was just such a lesson to watch him. And I was really inspired to try a little bit more of physical comedy after being among all these guys. Oh my gosh. I mean, I haven't had the chance to work with a lot of my mentors because some of them are no longer with us. But, you know, I grew up loving like Gilda Radner and Katharine Hepburn and Lucille Ball. And there's a little bit of all of those in Jane, hopefully. You know, you tend to glean something from everything you love and watch as a kid, and it stays with you. And I certainly have always loved comedy. And I thought the greatest thing about her is her inner kind of dork. She's just an awkward little girl who loved magic. And you have to think the kids who really embrace magic as young people aren't the cool kids. I mean, they really should be because magic is cool. But they're usually not the cool kids. So they spend a lot of time by themselves. And we all talked about what brought all these characters together was really a similar experience as children, as being the outcasts. And I thought that was kind of great. And once I had that in mind, she kind of arrived for me. She became very clear. And that's when we came up with the whole idea of her having stage fright. Came from that thought. So I always loved to watch magic, and as a kid I had magicians at every birthday party, and you know, my parents had spent a lot of time making sure that I could have a magician there, and they enjoyed it just as much as me. But I wasn't the kid who learned how to do magic tricks. I wanted to preserve the illusion, and I never got good at sleight of hand or anything, but I love watching great magicians. And for this film I got to see, you know, Copperfield. I got to go to the Magic Castle in LA and watch really great professional close-up magicians, and I learned a few tricks for the film. Some of them didn't make it. The one that I did is actually changed in post. It looks like I made a butterfly appear. What it really was a trick that you make a dollar bill levitate, which is pretty fun, but they changed it to a butterfly. He's the most successful performer of all time. More people have seen him than anyone else. I just find that incredible, and he does that show every night. I don't understand. I mean, I know he is well compensated, but I am amazed, and I have a lot of respect for him, and I really appreciated that he was on set so warm and friendly, and allowed us to ask questions, not about his tricks, that's sealed in a vault, but he invited us to the show, and I got to peek backstage and watch how the stagehands, you know, work together in this incredibly difficult operation to pull off these major illusions that don't work without that team. Yeah. I know, I always hoped I'd work Vegas. It's good. And I'll come back here as an elderly person and work the strip again. Illegal. No, I really, I think, you know, there's something about Vegas that's like the old school style of entertainment where entertainers weren't necessarily, you know, the highest rung of like glossy, glamorous society. Like there's something about the people who are working every night in the casinos, in the comedy clubs. They're really like grinding away. And we got to see a few shows, but really working on the on the strip in the middle of the day is pretty funny because you see people going home after a night out at like 9 a.m. You see them dragging themselves in their walk of shame back to their hotels. But I had such a good time here. It was great. It's funny because the best comedians are great dramatic actors. They just understand the material. They really commit to the stakes of the situation. And so really you approach it in the same way. I think comedy has a lot to do with rhythm, and that's incredibly difficult, and has a lot to do with the rhythm of the other actor. So in a way, I think it's more collaborative than drama, and that probably makes it a little more challenging. But I hope to do more because I had so much fun learning from the. I now have the luxury of being a little bit more picky, and I try to trust my first instinct. If I think in the past I've convinced myself something could be good, you know, read it once and then said, oh, but it's such a good job, I'll convince myself this is a better script than it is. Now I'm really trusting my instincts because I have the luxury to do so. And frankly, I want to do things I haven't done before. And there are a lot of things I haven't done, so I'm looking forward to all those.